que es acojonante. ¿Y qué? ¿Nos vamos? Que no nos va, no nos va.
¿Cómo sí?
No nos va. Estamos dentro. No, pero es porque viene otro de cartón.
Vámonos.
Levanta los pies. Levanta los pies.
Under a darkened sky, Valencia stood on the brink of chaos. People in the town of Chiva, southeast of the city, felt the raindrops intensify, unaware that within hours they would experience one of Europe's deadliest natural disasters. It wasn't just a storm. It was a catastrophe of overwhelming force, a relentless deluge that would drown homes, businesses, and lives in its path. The air crackled with panic as sirens wailed and muddied waters broke through every barricade. Roads transformed into rivers, railways vanished under torrents, and homes, once symbols of safety, became traps for many who couldn't escape in time. By morning, the numbers were staggering. Over 200 lives lost, hundreds missing, and towns throughout the Valencia region buried under a thick, unrelenting layer of mud.
Bueno, hola a tots. La tenim així, val? La carretera que sí que està al Molí, entre Ràfol i Sagra, la tenim tallada, val? Està Rubén per un costat i Raúl per l'altre.
Cadax, a quaint town in Girona province, was one of the first to experience nature's wrath. The town square, usually buzzing with families and children, was eerily silent as a powerful wave surged through, sweeping cars into twisted piles against a bridge. In moments, the streets were an unforgiving torrent, taking everything with it. The footage, broadcast across Spain, shocked viewers. No casualties were reported in Cadax, but the shocking images foreshadowed the devastation Valencia was yet to see. As night fell over Valencia, people tried to settle, unaware that tragedy would strike at dawn. Torrential rains unleashed their fury, dropping more water in 8 hours than the area had seen in the past 20 months. In towns like Chiva, the sheer volume of water was extraordinary, as Spain's weather service later stated. Flood barriers crumbled, overwhelmed drainage canals overflowed, and the flood surged like a monstrous force through everything in its path. By daylight, the devastation was total. In the towns south of Valencia, streets were no longer recognizable. They were buried under the debris and ruins of lives uprooted. The ground floors of countless homes and businesses were ruined, their interiors caked in mud, belongings strewn about like remnants of forgotten lives. The magnitude of the flood became painfully clear: 219 dead, with most of the victims in the Valencia region. Police, soldiers, and firefighters combed through the sludge, unearthing bodies in what were once streets or basements. Survivors recounted the minutes they would never forget. In one village, a family scrambled onto the roof of their car, watching helplessly as the water climbed higher. For others, there was no time to react. Trapped in their homes and vehicles, victims perished as the floodwaters surged with merciless speed.
Se ha roto el puente, se está inundando todo. Se nos va a inundar la casa también, me voy para abajo. Mirar todo. Todo inundado.
Rescue workers searched for anyone left alive, combing through devastated neighborhoods, underground garages, and riversides in the hope that some of the 93 missing people might still be found. The heartbreaking reality: many of them might never be seen again. In the wake of such a tragedy, the people of Valencia didn't just mourn, they rose up in fury.
No sé quién es. Ni los otros tampoco sé quién son.
Thousands of protesters gathered in the city's center, demanding answers, accountability, and justice for what they saw as a catastrophic failure by the authorities. Valencia's regional leader, Carlos Mazin of the Conservative Popular Party, faced the people's wrath. He had defended his administration's response, saying the flood was unforeseeable and that Madrid hadn't issued timely alerts to Valencia. But the crowd had little patience for excuses. They wanted to know why warnings were delayed, why they were caught off guard, why they had to suffer unimaginable losses in silence while their leaders remained distant. Tensions escalated quickly. The sound of chanting rose into an uproar as protesters, some visibly grieving, clashed with riot police outside City Hall. Videos captured scenes of officers wielding batons, attempting to push the crowds back from the seat of regional power. Mazin's resignation was called for as people accused his administration of negligence, and anger only grew when the royal family, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, and other officials arrived in Paiporta, one of the hardest-hit towns. The visiting delegation was met not with reverence, but with outrage. Locals hurled mud and debris at their motorcade, expressing their frustration in the only way they felt would be heard. For the survivors, each day after the flood brought a new challenge. In over 70 towns near Valencia, basic necessities were hard to come by. While water service had been partially restored, the supply was deemed unsafe for drinking. Lines of people waited at makeshift emergency kitchens and food stands that dotted the streets, which were still littered with wreckage and debris. In this state of ruin, thousands of volunteers joined police and military personnel, rolling up their sleeves to clear streets, restore order, and provide whatever comfort they could to those who had lost everything. Spain's Consortium for Insurance was flooded with claims for property damage. A staggering 21,000 for homes, 12,000 for businesses, and 44,000 for vehicles lost to the flood.
La puerta de la bodega se ha abierto de la presión del agua y está entrando toda el agua en la bodega. Madre mía. Qué miedo, a mí esto ya no me hace gracia, ¿eh?
Marincha del Valle Scon, president of the Association of Insurance Companies, stated that this was poised to be the most expensive weather-related payout in Spain's history. Still, the immediate need was for far more than financial aid. Spain's government announced a relief package of 10.6 billion euros, $11.5 billion, with an additional 900 million euros pledged by the European Investment Bank. But for those waiting in the mud-strewn streets, no sum could ever replace what had been lost. Within this calamity were stories of profound resilience. In Paiporta, a young woman named Clara recalled her desperate escape from her home with her parents. The water had risen so quickly that they barely made it to higher ground. She still trembled as she spoke, her voice thick with emotion, of how they had lost their home, their possessions, everything. "I have nothing left," she said, gesturing toward the still-flooded road that used to lead to her family street. Elsewhere, an elderly couple stood at what remained of their house, silently clutching each other. The walls were streaked with mud, their cherished photographs destroyed, and their furniture upturned in ruin. The woman, who introduced herself as Sophia, said in a quiet, broken voice, "We've survived wars, hard times, but nothing like this." Her husband stared down, unable to look at what they once called home. Volunteers joined residents to dig through mud and debris in hopes of recovering any belongings that might have survived. Many, like Clara and Sophia, could hardly recognize what they had lost. And yet, amid the heartbreak, the community forged bonds of resilience and solidarity, leaning on each other as they struggled to reclaim their lives from the ruins. As authorities continue the search, Valencia's flood leaves a tragic legacy that cannot be ignored. Climate change, with its undeniable role in intensifying extreme weather events, has brought Spain and Europe into a new era of unpredictable, devastating disasters. The unprecedented rainfall that drowned Valencia is a harrowing reminder of how swiftly natural forces can reshape entire lives, towns, and nations. For the residents of Valencia, however, the tragedy has also become a rallying cry, a demand for a better future where accountability is upheld and where governments act not in hindsight, but with foresight and vigilance. The protests continue, and as Spain mourns, the world watches, questioning what must change to prevent such disasters from happening again.
Lleva, pero que está apretando, está bajando con más fuerza.
The people of Valencia know that healing will take time. Their wounds, both physical and emotional, run deep. But even as they struggle to rebuild, they hold on to one hope, that their pain and their loss will not be in vain. They demand not only aid, but justice, and for the leaders in power to heed the warning this disaster has sent. In the wreckage of a city transformed, Valencia's people stand together, defiant against the water that tried to drown their spirit. As they rebuild, there is a silent, shared vow that their suffering will fuel a push for change. And as mud-caked streets and shattered lives bear witness to the storm, a collective resilience rises. The flood may have torn Valencia apart, but its people are piecing it back together, stronger, more united, and ever watchful of the future.
Se lleva el coche. ¡Ah! ¡El coche! Se lleva el coche. Normal, pero ¿cómo no se va a llevar el coche? Y ha abierto la puerta de la bodega al agua y todo.
cago en la puta. Menos mal que estoy aquí enganchado.
Oh my god. So that is our tiny little river now.
Ai, mare, este cotxe, la xica esta que està ahí dins, per favor. Ai, mare.